Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest of Max Kellerman's bad boxing takes that have left the boxing community at large in an uproar. Great Chef Boxing posted Max Kellerman's top 3 pound for pound from the latest Ring Magazine video, Shakur Stevenson at number 1, Jesse Bam Rodriguez at number 2, and Naoya Inoue at number 3. He references Shakur's win over Teofimo and Bam's win over Vargas, but doesn't mention Inoue's win over Nakatani. So basically, he sees it as Teofimo is better than Vargas, Vargas is better than Nakatani. Malik Scotch said that Bam's footwork is way better than Inoue's also. Unfucking believable. No, I can believe it because these kind of Americentric boxing takes are commonplace, so long as it's the Americans doing the commentating. They're not actually rating these fighters on the premise of their accomplishments, as neither Jesse Rodriguez or Shakur Stevenson are as accomplished as Naoya Inoue. It's not about that. It's not even about boxing skill. It's about who's in proximity of North America. For them, that's what it's all about. They'll look for any reason to rate the American fighter higher than the foreign fighter. Is it because Bam's fight ended in a knockout and Inoue's didn't, that Bam's fight ended in more dramatic fashion than Inoue's? I mean, you could say that, but Vargas ain't the same caliber of fighter as Junto Nakatani. Junto was a 3-weight world champion going into the Inoue fight. What was Vargas? The recipient of a WBA title they stripped Seiya Tsutsumi of, so that Bam would be able to win it from him. That's what he was. Guy in the right place at the right time for Bam to beat him up. Antonio Vargas was not the same caliber of fighter as Junto. Now maybe Teofimo Lopez was. Maybe, but Shakur Stevenson's fight with him was no more thrilling, no more dramatic than Inoue's fight with Junto. The difference being, Inoue was already a more accomplished fighter than Shakur and Jesse before he fights Junto. So do accomplishments not count for anything anymore? They only count if you're American, and it's the Americans doing the commentating, because underneath it all, that's what it is. These Americentric boxing takes stem from a prejudice. They are prejudiced against foreign fighters. When one Japanese fighter beats another, even if they're both very accomplished, that doesn't impress the Americans because neither of them is American. Inoue's win over Nonito Donaire is just as valid as any of Bam's wins over Carlos Cuadras, Sor Rumvisai, or Gallo Estrada. If anything, they're more valid because Nonito wasn't finished after that, the way that they were. Nonito went on to become a champion again after Bam beat him, and after Bam beat him, he beat him again in even better fashion for another belt. His win over Nonito is just as valid as any of Bam's wins over 3 of the 4 kings. Where he's got Bam beat is he's been a champion at more weights than Bam already. Been undisputed at more of those weights than Bam. Bam's never been undisputed. Neither is Shakur. So does that count for nothing? No, because he's Japanese. No, because he's not based out of America. That's what their real gripe is. They're not impressed with anybody who doesn't pander to them. And even if he did, all you'd really get are a lot of bad faith boxing takes and bad faith arguments. I've told you time and time again, at this point, America is by and large the land of the bad boxing takes. That's all that comes out of here. Inoue is arguably one of the most active boxers in the world today, where he doesn't need to be because he earns more than Bam, earns more than Shakur, but he makes it a point to get out there and get out there often, and when he does, he's dominant. Whether he wins by knockout or he wins by a decision, he's dominant, so that he can drop 2 spots down from number 1 to number 3 because he's not American enough for Max. He's not American enough for Malik Scotch. He's not American enough for Sean Zettel, who after watching Bam versus Vargas came to the conclusion, if they fight, Bam Rodriguez will beat the great Naoya Inoue. I've never picked against Inoue. He's faster and punches harder than Rodriguez, but Rodriguez is peaking and the better technician right now. Oh, so you've never picked against Naoya Inoue? Isn't this you in 2021 picking Stephen Fulton to beat Inoue? Saying after watching tonight, Inoue's team might very well want to keep him the hell away from Cool Boy Steph. Ain't that you, Sean? A friend of the channel, Marcos Villegas, tried to check him. He told him, "You're stretching it a little bit there, Sean," to which Sean responded, "Nah, man. He's a little guy moving up from 112. He's never fought someone with the boxing ability, athleticism, and mix of speed, movement, and ability
identity that Fulton brings
You're just trying to get invited to the proverbial cookout, Sean.
to the table. It's as tough of a fight as there is for him out there at 118 and 122.
I've never picked against Inoue.
So then what the fuck was that? They seem to grade these Americans on a curve. It doesn't take much for them to be impressed by the American fighters, but Inoue, he's got to go above and beyond.
He can outdo every single one of these fighters they've named and still get rated beneath them, because underneath it all, what it really is they think Japanese fighters are beneath them.
They think everybody who's not within proximity of them is beneath them. This stems from a prejudice, a bias.
A bias that almost borders on racism. Almost.
So how did that evaluation of Inoue versus Fulton age, Sean?
Not too good if I do say so myself. And now you're saying the same thing about Bam. Oh, now Bam is the one to do it. Near as I can tell, what you're doing is throwing shit at a wall, hoping something sticks. Because even a broken clock is right twice a day.
And other cliches and colorful colloquialisms.
Take it from a guy who wasn't blown away by Stephen Fulton. Take it from a guy who picked Inoue to clean his clock.
He beats up Bam too. If they do this fight on the time frame that they want to do it, sometime early next year, well, that's way too fucking soon for Bam to move up to a fourth weight class. He just got to his third.
If they do this fight in the time frame that they want to do it, that's going to be another time that Sean got it wrong. Dead wrong. There's no shortage of boxing talk coming out of the United States because there's very little boxing, actual boxing going on. The American boxers are more good for gossips and Twitter wars than actual fights.
But the American commentators and would-be analysts seem more enthused about that than what the other fighters are doing, the foreigners, because the foreigners, they can never get a fair shake with them.
Just in keeping with the theme of bad boxing takes brought to you by Americans, another one from Max Kellerman that suggests, if Boots Ennis beats Xander Zayas next weekend, that catapults him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, maybe if the voting panel is as wishy-washy as you, Max, and as Americentric, perhaps.
Kind of a boxing take seems largely hyperbolic. Beating Xander Zayas as part of a comprehensive body of work, that and then some, is definitely a Hall of Fame-worthy conversation, but Boots, just beating him?
That's all it takes, Max? That's it? Don't you think it's a little bit early for this?
No, not for Max. It's never too early to start overrating the American fighter.
Glazing the American fighter.
Not saying that you can't give Boots reasonable odds to win the fight. I'm just saying they always jump to very bold conclusions when it comes to this fighter, and they've been doing this since before he actually accomplished anything, so when they're still doing it now, it's just nauseating.
Get off his dick. His biggest win is Stanionis.
I was pleasantly surprised to hear that veteran content creator and interviewer Najee Chill of Cigar Talk doesn't think that Boots' resume is all that, and because of that, Boots doesn't like him.
They said call Boots. I saw somebody say call Boots. I ain't gonna lie, I think Boots don't really fuck with me like that. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know why though. I feel like he got mad that I said I made a take and I was like, yo, I think, he gotta really step up them names. He gotta fight some people. And I think he got mad at that. So to be honest, I was trying to get an interview with Boots, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm keeping it real with y'all. Y'all the community. I don't think Boots gonna happen. I don't think Boots is not happy with me because I said I think you gotta fight. I think you gotta fight them names. You gotta fight them names. You know what I'm saying? And I think he got mad at that, to be honest. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But this is what happens. And they say I'm biased. Tell me a time I sat in the interview and didn't ask the questions that y'all wanted to hear. When have I done that? When have I done that? When have I ever ran from the questions that we all want to know? If I'm biased, I wouldn't even ask the question. I asked all the questions, bro. When have I done that?
It was a very light criticism from Najee Chill. It's not even like he went in on him the way that I do.
You would think that Boots would be a little bit more realistic and a little bit more understanding, because up until the point he fights Montes Stanionis, What names did he fight? And afterwards...
Because what, you beat Stanionis, so nobody's supposed to say nothing after that because Stanionis is such a big fucking name?
You should at least understand the expectation from the paying public that for all the hype you've received, all the buzz, the resume could stand to look a bit better. Now, he is fighting Xander Zayas.
Najee doesn't expect to get an interview with this guy on that premise that he made a light critique of his resume so far. In truth, I could never be an interview guy.
Credit to the guys that get out there and do it, and have to deal with these polarizing, volatile personalities, often petulant, self-absorbed.
Self-important, self-satisfied, but I myself, I just couldn't do it. I did it very briefly with the women on the premise that, well, nobody was covering the girls at that time, and they had more interesting stories to tell, at least for me, than the guys do. With the guys, you know what you're gonna get.
Big fucking ego and a whole bunch of softball questions.
So that's what they expect you to ask. They expect you to act like they conquered the fucking world already, even when their best win is a Montestanionis.
I can't fucking do it, man.
Boots wins that fight, and he does it in good fashion. Maybe you could argue that he enters the pound-for-pound list because he's not on mine yet.
If he were to enter, it would be in the bottom tier. He would be a two-time unified, two-weight world champion who took belts from two reigning champions. That might be enough for him to get in at the bottom, but like I said, he's not there yet, and there are already some very accomplished fighters there, even there at the bottom.
I'm not blown away by Boots. Why the fuck would I be? When did he exceed expectations? When did he take on a fighter that actually stood a chance of beating him? I think he's doing that now for the first time after over 30 fights.
I give more credit to Xander, who's taking on a fight like this at only 23 years old, than I'm gonna give Boots.
Boots is almost 30. He's been around a long time. It only seems like he just now stepped into the spotlight, but the guy's been around a while.
Curb your enthusiasm.
Just in keeping with the theme of having to curb your enthusiasm, apparently, Gervonta Davis was shown doing a signature backflip in a new DAZN commercial. Is PBC now officially on DAZN?
Yeah, I saw the commercial. It was strange that they showed that highlight of Gervonta Davis doing a backflip off the top rope, because what does it imply? Are they now doing more business with PBC? That's the only major promotional outfit in the United States that hasn't migrated over to DAZN. Of all the major promotional outfits around the world, that one would be the last missing puzzle piece. I don't think that they bring all that much to the table, but let's talk about it.
Another major promotional outfit migrating to the platform would represent value for money. That much more content. And we all know by now that DAZN has full pay-per-view functionality. So whatever PBC has been doing on Amazon, they can also do that on DAZN.
PBC's doing pay-per-view shows on Amazon almost exclusively. Only every now and then do you get a regular show, and we're only talking about 1 or 2 fights in a calendar year.
Not a comprehensive schedule like what you used to get when they were on Showtime and Fox.
So that if they migrated over to DAZN from Amazon, they would still be able to do their pay-per-view shows like they've been doing the last 2 years, but it would become a part of DAZN's Ultimate tier. Because remember, DAZN is actively pursuing box office fights to spruce up the Ultimate tier.
Most of what PBC does are box office fights. I don't know how box office worthy they are, but you get the gist of it.
I believe, though I'm not sure, that if the PBC went all in with DAZN, they would also get access to those No Limit Promotions shows in Australia, because DAZN does have a rights deal for those shows in America. They's the ones that show them.
Like a Top Rank's arrangement with Mr. Ohashi and Taken Promotions in Japan, the PBC has that kind of arrangement with No Limit in Australia, so that would theoretically be another added advantage.
More content.
And the stable, whatever remains of it. No, I don't think much of the PBC stable by itself. By itself, I don't see much value there, but when you think about it as being part of a package, you bring them over, in addition to Queensbury, in addition to Matchroom, Golden Boy, Misfits, Boxer.
Well, then you start to see the value. If it is in addition to
expanding on the roster of fighters that fight on the DAZN platform, that would definitely make them the authority in all things boxing, big-time boxing, and give Zuffa and the people at Paramount that much more to compete with if PBC were to go over there, go to DAZN, giving DAZN access to those fighters. That's Brandon Figueroa, Gary Antoine Russell, David Benavidez.
Gervonta Davis.
In theory, Gervonta Davis, because it's not like his legal woes have just miraculously disappeared and gone away, and I don't get the impression he's all of a sudden fallen back in love with the sport of boxing. Remember that he started off last year saying he wanted last year to be his last year in the sport. So even if PBC comes over to DAZN, that doesn't necessarily mean that Gervonta will also. He's got other things to tend to before he can box again. They're saying that he may return in the fall.
But people say a lot of things.
There are other added perks to the PBC migrating over to DAZN. There are other added advantages, but I don't know that Gervonta Davis is one of them. Not indefinitely.
This is still an acquiescence of defeat. It would be. If the PBC ends up migrating over to DAZN, it's a testament to how bad things have gotten for them, because initially, when DAZN debuted in this market, it was the PBC taking shots at them. All that staff.
All those fucking morons that couldn't see the forest through the trees, not realizing streaming apps would become the future.
Go to DAZN, you might actually get a budget, which is more than you got on Amazon.
You might be able to do a few regular shows throughout the calendar year, not just pay-per-views, because they can't all be pay-per-views. You gotta figure that that Amazon deal they struck over 2 years ago has gotta be close to ending. Amazon isn't doing that much for them. They haven't invested much in the PBC, so that if they were to leave the platform, I don't even think Amazon would notice.
Does this eliminate all the side of the street politics if everybody's on the same side?
I would say no. Even with that many fighters, all boxing on the same platform, the cowards are gonna stay cowards. The guys avoiding tough fights are gonna keep avoiding them. You're a little closer to making those fights happen if all those guys are on the same platform.
But it's not a lock, and it doesn't guarantee that everybody's gonna fight everybody. Not necessarily.
What it would do is vindicate guys like me and you who knew from the very beginning that DAZN is gonna last. DAZN is here to stay, whereas Showtime and Fox, those conventional networks, they's the ones that was gonna leave.
Which they did.
PBC migrating over to DAZN after saying all the stuff they said is absolutely an acquiescence to defeat. It's just unfortunate that so many of the Haymanites have disappeared and gone away. The PBC faction of fans aren't as vocal as they used to be because there's not that many of them left.
They don't have that many fighters to root for, to get behind. They've been barely able to keep them active since migrating to Amazon.
Of course I want to rub it in. Of course I want to rub their fucking faces in it, of course.
But like I said, there are not that many Haymanites left. All those idiot boxes that said all that bullshit on their little YouTube channels.
Overall, I don't think it's a bad thing if the PBC migrates over to DAZN. It's that much more content. It's more convenient. I'm not against it.